All right, shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off first and foremost by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Makar Kodesh. Double honors to our elders, the apostles, great millstone, who teach well. And peace, love, salutations, and blessings to those who do his work in truth and sincerity. This is your brother Nathan Yallo from the GMS Camp Atlanta, coming back into the spirit with another lesson. And I pray I hope this lesson is edifying. Now, in this particular lesson, we're going over debt. Basically how debt is usury. And usury is a tool that is used for the financial conquering or devastation of a nation. All right. And this is exactly what the fractional reserve American debt-based system is. It's a system built on usury. This is exactly why in this country, debt is wealth. All right. Now, there's a bunch of different technical things like instruments, are considered money, and a bunch of other things that you can use, bonds and things that are counted as as debt instruments. Okay, so America, Babylon is built off of usury. Now, this usury is used as a tool, and basically what usury is heavy interest. Now, we can start off with that by looking up what that word means. All right, so we got usury definition. It is an illegal action or practice of lending money at unreasonably high rates of interest. Okay, so when you think of the American debt, right? The American debt is $39 trillion. Now, this is a debt that is absolutely unsustainable, and it's ridiculously astronomical. It's like, who you owe all that money to? Okay, and who wouldn't stop lending you money after a certain amount, which shows you that this is just really ridiculous. Okay, but what that debt does represent is or what they want to collect from it is you. Okay, they want you to be a slave um uh to the debt. Okay, a debt slave. All right. So all right. So we're gonna start off with Proverbs 22:7. All right, and then we're gonna play a video. So this is Proverbs 22:7, and it says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is subject to the lender." Okay. So when you owe somebody, okay, you become subject onto them. And that's exactly what's going on here in America. America is in debt to somebody, and that's the banking family. Now, here's a quote from Maya Amschel Bauer before I play the video, and it says, and he was a Rothschild. Okay, it was Nathan Meyer Rothschild. Uh, uh, um, 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 okay, but we know him as Maya Amschel Bauer. All right. But he wrote a quote, and if you try to Google this, it's going to say this was an anti-Semitic quote. Well, nobody wouldn't even call him this man. I didn't even know this dude was a Jew, but obviously, you know, because if they call something anti-Semitic, anti-semantics, then obviously they're defending one of their own. All right. But later on, we did figure out who this man was. But it says, "Give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws." My Amschel Rothschild. All right. And the reason why he said this is because if you can control the currency, you can put usury on the nation. All right. And that takes me back to this precept again. He that Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is subject to the lender. All right. So you become subject to the lender. You become subject to the establishment or person that loans you the money. Now, here's the kicker. When they add high rates of interest onto that loan, then it becomes unsustainable. You actually become what we call a debt slave. All right, so let's just look that up. Okay, this is a debt slave is a person in bondage or usually forced to work to repay debt under terms that are unfair, undefined, or exercised, making repayment impossible. This practice is a form of modern slavery in human trafficking, where the value of labor is often not reasonably applied toward liquidating the debt. Okay, so you see that you become a debt slave, and then that's what we are. We're slaves of debt. We continuously work to pay a debt, and that's what bills are. You literally pay to live, and if you do something like go to school or something like that, then you become a debt slave. Okay? And then what do they do with that debt is they add usury on top of that. All right? Now, Esau is the one that's in power. So when you go to the book of Deuteronomy, okay, 28 and 44, this is not much to like it. 28 and 44, right? It says, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. So we are subject to those that are in rulership, which is the small hatters. Okay, and he lends to us and everybody else. And that lending power that this man has actually collapsed the world money system. And ultimately, he wants to use that collapse to bring in his new system, which is the MARK. All right. So here's a video right here because I want you to get a visual representation of debt and how astronomical the debt is. And this is why the Lord commanded us not to put usury on our brethren, because then it becomes something like this. It's unsustainable and it's unrealistic. Okay, there's no way that anybody could possibly owe that much.
This is $10,000. This is $1 million. Life-changing money for most, it's 100 of these $10,000 bricks.
Okay.
Next, $10 million. Enough to live very comfortably if you're careful. However, some people have won more than this in the lottery and have managed to recklessly lose it all.
That's nuts. How?
100 million. People have won this in the lottery as well.
My God.
And have also managed to lose all of it. Imagine that. This is not the national debt. This is $1 billion. It's made up of 100,000 of those $10,000 bricks.
Wow.
And it weighs about 11 tons.
Oh my God.
So far in these visualizations, I've gone up by factors of 10. 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, etc. This next one is a bit different.
Holy.
Can you guess how much this is?
100 billion.
If you guessed $1 trillion or even the national debt, those are both perfectly good guesses, wrong, but good. This is $500 billion or 500 billion.
Wow.
It's a loose pile 63 feet tall, weighing over 5,500 tons. If you made $10,000 per second, It would take nearly a year and 7 months to make 500 billion. But this isn't the national debt. The US national debt is $37 trillion.
Whoa.
You need 74 of these piles to make up the national debt. Like this. This is the national debt.
Oh my
It
God.
weighs a lot, both physically and metaphorically. Every 50 days, add another 500 billion. It grows by 1 trillion every 100 days. Now, I can point out a lot of statistics and fun facts, but really it's just completely unsustainable. The GDP of the United States is only $29.4 trillion.
We're cooked. We're
Our
cooked.
debt is higher than our GDP. The IRS collects about $5 trillion in taxes every year, $1 trillion of which goes to pay off just the interest on the national debt. That's 20%. 20% of your taxes go to pay interest on this debt.
What?
It is not sustainable. This small pile here is a real-time one-to-one representation of how quickly the national debt grows. The national debt grows at a rate of $48,100 per second.
Holy shit.
And since the start of this video has grown by $10 million.
Wow, dude.
It would take some sort of miracle to fix all this.
You guys are cooked? I'm fine, because I got bandos. You guys, however, you guys are fucked.
Yeah.
This is $10,000.
All right. But as you can see, how quickly and how this method of usury, because all this is just usury, man. You borrow more money, usury, borrow more money, usury, and it just builds up very quickly. But it's not the actual people that is borrowing this money. This is through the federal contracts that they make through the corporations. All right. So where did you get that money from? How are you benefiting from that? You see? Just for a little side, I'll just show you that it's all some bullshit. But, that just shows you this national debt. So when this dollar collapsed, this is what, you know, you seen the piles? What is it, 79, 76, 74 piles, something like that. But it was a lot.
This
You ain't gonna let me skip through it, huh? Anyway,
is 10,000.
well, I'm not gonna watch the whole thing again, but I think it was like 76 piles. I could be wrong, but it was a lot, you know. And that's a national debt, and it's increasing, faster than the people are making money to pay it. So how do you owe that money? You don't owe all that money. That's the money that's owed by the federal government. Through what they're the ones who are spending this money, okay, on national defense and all this stuff and blah blah blah. And the secret programs and all that stuff. Now, of course, there are some programs that benefit the people, but it's nowhere near the amount of money we're in debt. Okay, those programs don't cost that type of money. All right, so let's go back. Grab some more precepts because show you that this is why the Lord told us not to do this, because these things, this usury, it's something that you do to your enemies, and it eventually destroys the country, and that's exactly, or the nation, and that's exactly what's happening here in America right now. Okay, this is Exodus 22. And 25, it says, "If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor, but but poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury." Okay, which is heavy interest. Okay, it's telling you no, don't do that. But Esau's totally clean, contrary to what the scriptures say. Anything the Lord tell him not to do, hey, Esau gonna do it. All right. So he pays heavy debts, and and the people have been bamboozled into accepting this. And now look at the condition of everything, because this is the design of usury. That's why I read that quote by Amschel Rockefeller, okay, which was the top banking family, went in the top banking families. You see what he said? Said, "Give me control over it," because he understands that by lending the nation money and him having control over the production of money, when he borrows money from you, okay. So, for instance, he borrows $100 from you. He has to because you know you've been contracted to have control over the money. There's a book called "Creature from Jekyll Island" by G. Edward Griffin. All right. Let's see. All right. So this is the book right here. It's called "Creature from Jekyll Island." I have the book. I actually met the guy Jared Griffin and talked to him, and you know, but even back then I had a lot of knowledge of the interworkings of the Fed and how this money system works. You know, he's looking at me like, "Oh, you know all this stuff." Oh, yeah, man. You know, I understand. You know, I do my research on stuff. But anyway, the purpose of the Fed is to eat away all the real world value. So going back to my analogy, say for instance you have $100, right? And I need to borrow $100. You loan me the $100, but you are the only one that can produce money, and you loan me the $100. Okay. Now, through what we call a derivative swap, which is basically I owe you, you owe me, and blah blah blah, and it gets back around to me. So you take that $100, you pay your bills. The person that you pay their bills to, he go pay his bills, and that person pay his bills, and then that person pay his bills, and then before you know it, that $100 came back to you. So you go back to my man that loaned you $100, and you give him back the 100. He say, yeah, man, that's great, but you owe me 25% interest on this. You say, what? You look at the contract and sure enough, you owe 25% interest. But guess what? He's the only person that you can get money from because he has control. He has a monopoly on the money system, on the production of money. He has a monopoly on it. Okay. So, because he has a monopoly on it, what option do you have? You have to borrow more money. Okay. You have to borrow more money. So now you have to borrow from him $125, okay, or 125 plus the interest on that, just to pay him back. So this is a game that you have to continue to play. You have to keep borrowing money from him to pay money back to him, okay, because he controls the money supply, and over a period of time, that starts to eat away the real world value of things. So now you're paying more for stuff. Like that's why some of us that would know better back in the 80s, right? You know, we used to like I remember when I was growing up, I could pay 35 cent, 25 cent to 35 cent for a Snickers bar, right? I remember penny candy. People selling candy out their houses, you know, the old women selling candy out their houses. You know, you go and you buying penny candy and stuff like that. And you'll get like Tootsie Rolls and all that stuff. You go to the store and you get a quarter bag of chips, and the quarter bag of chips would be really full and big. And if you spend the 99, if you get the what we see right now, that's like these big $5 bags used to be 69 cents when I was growing up. And I've seen the price rate be raised on stuff, and before I was in the mix. It was even the stuff was even cheaper than that. So through the quantitative easing, the borrowing and recirculation of money, right, and the adding of usury, it has inflated the not the value but itself against real world things. Okay, so now those things that have been measured with the original value of that dollar, right? Now it takes more of the dollar to get that same product because that dollar has less value because of them printing more dollars. All right, and then they got to charge you interest for that. So, usury becomes a killer. Usury becomes something that will destroy your nation. All right, that's why the Lord said, don't put usury on them. Okay, because it's a destructive force. All right, I'm gonna grab just a couple more on usury. But Esau ain't gonna do that because Esau wicked. All right, so I'm gonna go to Leviticus, the 25th chapter. And it says, and if thy brother be waxing poor and have fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him. Yea, thou shalt be a stranger, sojourner. Is that what I wanted? Yeah, sojourner that he may live with thee. Verse 36. Thou take thou no usury of him or increase, but fear thy God, that thy brother may live with thee. Okay. Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend thy victuals for increase. Okay? So the Lord is very clear on this. That you're not supposed to inflict usury on the poor because what happens? He becomes a debt slave to you. And that's what we are. So for any of you fools out there that say that we don't need salvation, or Yahushua, we don't need him to save us. You're a fool because we're all enslaved to this debt. Like the Matrix. We are born into a prison that you can't see, taste, or touch. All right, that's what this is. We're born into a prison that we can't see, taste, or touch, and that's why the scriptures give us warning in Habakkuk the 6th chapter. Habakkuk the 2nd chapter, the 6th verse, where it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taunting proverb and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his? How long? And that's Esau going to all of these other nations, taking their stuff. And he's been doing this. That's why it says, how long? Like, how long, Lord, you going to allow this to keep happening? This man is running up into other people's stuff, just taking everybody's shit. Okay? Because he got the blessing of the sword. And it says, and to him that laden himself with thick clay. And when you go into this word, clay, right? Yeah, aptite. Aptite.
Strong's H 5671. Avteet. Avteet.
All right, and when you come down here, it says weight of pledges, heavy debts, heavy debt. So that's why the scriptures give warning about heavy debt and heavy usury, because there's no wiggle room for usury. That's why everybody end up failing in the long run because it's interest, man. You paying on the interest and not on the principal. Even if you double up and try to pay on the principal and on the interest all at one time, it's still gonna, eat your finances up. All right. And then America's under thick clay. America's under debt. Nobody wants the dollar anymore. All right. And then when you go to the book of Ezekiel, This is Ezekiel 18:8. It says, "He that have not given forth upon usury, neither hath taken increase, that hath withdrawn his hand from iniquity, hath uh, uh, um, hath executed true judgment between man and man." Is that what I wanted? Oh yeah, I wanted 13. My bad. Now let's do the start at verse 12. It says, "He that oppressed the poor and the needy hath spoiled by violence. He hath not restored the pledge, and have lifted up his eyes to the idols, hath committed abominations." And who does that describe? That describe these so-called white people out here, man. These Edomites. They're the ones that have this destructive nature by robbing the poor and spoiling by violence, violently taking everything from you. Okay, it says, "Hath given forth upon usury, and have taken increase. Shall he then live? He shall not live." Okay, that's why going back to Habakkuk, the second chapter, it says, "Woe to him," which means death or destruction. It says, "He have done all these abominations. He shall surely die. His blood shall be upon him." All right. So the things the usury that Esau has inflicted upon the Israelites and the rest of the world, he gonna pay for that, man. Okay, all of this stuff that these people have accumulated is through ill-gotten gain. Okay, it's through ill-gotten gain. You know, you already in a hurting situation. You need a car. You take a loan to get a car. Because you have to. But and you feeling good for a minute, but after about 2 months, you already see that the car note plus the insurance busting your pockets open. Okay, and because they busting your pockets open, right? Uh, you don't have any money for anything because you barely struggling to pay the bills. You see, that's why the Lord told us not to put forth usury, and this is why Esau put forth usury. Let me go to the book of Psalms. This is Psalms 15:5. It says, "He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh the reward against the innocent, he that doeth these things shall never be moved." Okay? So the Lord tells you, you know what I'm saying, that there's a benefit of not doing this stuff. You know, hey man, help your brother out. I mean, nobody else is. So if you're in a situation where you can help your brother out, man, help your brother out. And if he can pay you back, let him pay you back. But don't be, you know, putting interest on it. I ain't saying brothers do that, but I'm just saying, like, that's what Esau do. Okay? Esau loans you money at 13, 14% interest rate, 26% interest rate. It's crazy. And it's compounded interest. Okay, so in a year, it damn near doubles. Well, in 7 years, it damn near doubles. All right? I think it's something like that, man. I could be wrong. But anyway, with that, I'm ended off again with all praise and going honor to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai Bashir Kakadash. Until next time, I can say Shalom.